Whether you're a buyer or a seller, I'm sure you've heard of the company of Opendoor, specifically if you're looking here in the Northeast Florida area. Now, Opendoor is actually an iBuyer that purchases properties from the main owner, and they flip the property to change anything that they're looking to do to make a profit. Let's talk about the pros and cons to both selling and also buying with Opendoor, featuring my cat. Now, this is actually more of a personal video because I personally have purchased my home that you guys are actually seeing me video in right now. I have purchased it from Opendoor. I've also helped another buyer purchase a home with Opendoor, and I've also helped a seller sell with Opendoor. So these are firsthand experiences of what I've seen and also what I've heard other people see with purchasing and selling with Opendoor and things that they don't tell you about. First, let's get into selling with Opendoor. Now, there are a lot of pros to selling with Opendoor, right, Whopper? Okay, but the convenience is honestly amazing because it allowed my seller not only to get the home that they want, because they found the home quickly of where they wanted to be. So he wasn't really typically ready to just pull the trigger, but that just is the situation he ended up in. He wanted to move. It was time to move closer to family and with family. So we had to sell this property fast, and the market was not allowing us to do it. But Opendoor was actually interested in it. So we said, no problem, let's shoot our shot. Because not only is it the convenience and the speed, but also the fact that you don't have to have any showings. So that's a huge inconvenience for a lot of sellers, why people typically don't like to do it, because you have to constantly keep your house up over time, making sure it's clean, because a showing can happen in 5 minutes, it could happen in 5 hours, it could happen in 5 weeks sometimes, depending on the market. Another huge pro is this is a cash buyer. So this isn't something that's based on a contingency of repairs or anything like that. So they'll give you this initial offer. You probably might have gotten something in the mail, something that looks a little bit like this, possibly. But remember, that's their initial offer. And that's typically what they do. And that's what they did to my buyer, saying, hey, we'll initially offer you X amount and we'll give you X amount. We're going to take it as is. Well, they do have someone come and inspect it. That's when they get you. So they basically do exactly what you would do on your buy side, and they would ask for X amount for repairs. So they needed a fresh coat of paint, a couple appliances to be replaced. They actually built that into the price. So then, yes, they're purchasing it for X amount, but now suddenly they're asking for concessions. That's where they get you too. Pro is you actually get to skip the repairs. Now, initially. So basically, they're able to tack them on to a deduction of what your net is so that you wouldn't actually have to find the vendor, live through the construction, live through the repairs, and try to outsource it yourself when they'll just deduct it from it and just do the legwork for you after closing so you have nothing to worry about. And another great one is that there's technically no obligation. So if they send you this offer, you're not obligated to accept it. You could honestly just say no. What I've done for some people who are in his situation, I showed him what the numbers look like and what he could get for X amount, but how many days on market it might last. Well, when we ended up selling it to Opendoor, of course, it's a quick turnover. We closed in 2 weeks. So it's just crazy how fast it can happen because, again, this is a cash buyer, so they can just move things along faster. And all they're wanting to do is honestly flip it and make a profit anyways. Now let's get down to the nitty gritty of the cons. And of course, I'm going to put our experience in it as well. Now, some of the cons that we definitely see with selling to Opendoor is, of course, that's going to be a lower price. That's not going to be the price that I'm going to have a listing consultation with you with saying you can get X amount for your home. It's not going to go based on market value because they're not only going to put the deduction for what they feel your home is worth because they also want to make money too. So it's going to be just underneath that market value on top of any repairs that they'd request from you that they take a deduction for. And then also they'd be taking about 5%. They have a 5% fee. They don't tell you about that up front, do they? Right, Whopper? But a lot of people typically go with Opendoor because they're like, oh, we don't have to deal with any agents or anything like that or pay compensations. Actually, they have it built in. Technically, with the 5%, you're actually paying for the next buyer's agent to come in because 2.5% of that goes to the buyer's agent that's coming out on the back end when they do eventually flip and sell that property. And you're also not getting away stock free because you also do have closing costs. It's about 1%, but you still have closing costs. So now all of that going together, you're paying 6%, which you would have paid with an agent and probably made more money with an agent. But again, this is all dependent on your timeline, your needs, and honestly, the market that you're currently in as well. And of course, because you're working with an iBuyer and an LLC, what you're doing is you have less room for negotiation. So there's not a back and forth of how much you think your home is worth because you have tons of memories in this home, or you just put up a fence last week, there's not much negotiation there. Like they're just going to say yes or no. It's very black and white because they're looking at the numbers and how much they'll be able to make out on the other side, not really how much you're able to net. That's the least of their concerns, unfortunately. And as we already mentioned, the unexpected deductions that could be done, whether that's through repairs or items that suddenly they're like, hey, we definitely want this fixed because of the area. And then also because of the market we're having, they're getting pretty picky about it. So being eligible now is actually a little bit harder than it used to be before. Of course, when the market was crazy and it was booming, they were buying it because they knew they make a profit. It's a little bit different now. That house that I've told you about, they lost money on that contract. Like it's actually wild. And I cannot wait to tell you guys my experience with buying with Opendoor, but that's next. But definitely your home may be eligible and may not be eligible, but they have someone come out to make sure that the numbers work. And what I always do too as an agent, of course, knowing your timeline, knowing what you need, if that is the option that you need, because I got paid $0 for that. To be very clear, I made no money by helping them sell that property because it made the most sense for my buyer at the time. He had a home he wanted to make happen. I wanted to make magic happen. Do I do that often? Absolutely not. I do this for a living. I have to pay for the house that I bought from Opendoor. But let's talk to my home buyers who are looking possibly at a home that's being sold with Opendoor. You might see a huge sign in the yard that might look a little bit like this. You'll see this giant sign and you'll be like, oh, I'll go ahead and call them. First, get yourself an agent because you're going to want someone to negotiate a lot of these things that are it's going to be an up and down. I'm going to be completely transparent. As someone who purchased a property myself and how much communication I had to drag on because there is absolutely no communication on the other side when you are purchasing. I also had to do it for my buyers recently when we just closed, and I had to wait to make this video until after we closed. Now, I will say the convenience of it is really nice because obviously if it's owned by Opendoor, I don't have anyone in the property. So I was able to come as free and go as much as I wanted to view the property. There'd be a day when I'm just like, hey, family, you want to go see it? And we'll just jump in the car, I'll plug in the showing and we'll go see it. So the convenience of that actually is really nice. I do wish that they stage their properties. They do virtual staging online so that I could have seen what the property could have become. I mean, I like what we've chosen, but having that convenience was like chef's kiss because I could never have been in another person's home as much as I was in this one before we bought it. And this actually is a pretty cool thing that they do too. They do a cash advantage. Now, this is almost like when you trade in for a car, like they have incentives and things like that. So say that you have a home to sell just like that guy did, but they weren't buying an Opendoor house, but you can almost have a trade-in deal going on where it's like, hey, we'll sell our house to Opendoor if you'll let us purchase this house with Opendoor. So they sometimes do deals like that, and it's really cool that they even offer that. Another big pro is the renovations. I'm letting you know. So I know the history of my personal property that I live in, and it was the worst house, the worst. It's funny because the neighbors, when I moved in, I already knew it was the worst house in the neighborhood. I was already told I have friends in the neighborhood, and they were like, oh my gosh, it's the worst. Don't buy that house. Apparently my front door was left open at long periods of time. People threw TVs through windows. It was a wreck. So I couldn't imagine everything I've heard of it and what they turned it into because we see it in my this is my bathroom. My house is very white. It has the LVP floors. It has really nice fixtures. So, and then of course I have these beautiful windows. I love these. If you guys are in the budget where you can afford the pantry shutters, Demi Judd. But if you guys are ever in the market to have these plantation shutters, I definitely would add it because they're just so nice. Do they help with heat at all? Absolutely not. But they're very beautiful and I have a lot of natural light that comes into my office all the time. But they did upgrades to the property that we probably wouldn't have done. But there is a whole other thing that goes into a con and we'll get to that soon. Matter of fact, let's just jump into it. Okay, I'm going to go right into that one first, which is the renovations. Now, I have been for my property and another buyer recently. So I will say, yes, having the renovations are beautiful, but are these top of the line taking care of the property as if you're buying a new construction home? Absolutely not. How many things are just shoddy jobs. I'll probably put some photos here of things in my house that I bought that they did. And now I'm going to have them surround me because they honestly just give me complete anxiety because I'm a perfectionist. I work with new construction all the time. I see one little thing wrong and I'm like, hey, by the way, I need you to put tape there. You need to fix that. And so moving into a house where it's a new house and things look nice, but when you start looking a little bit closer after the oohs and the ahs, then you're like, what the heck is that? Why did you do it like that? And I said that a lot about some of the things in my house, but no joke, because even when it came to inspection period, it was seriously like drilling it constantly into them. Like, hey, we need this. And they're like, it's so, is. Okay, cool. Like one thing I will say, by all means, if there's ever an issue with like a roof, like the big 4-point things, they do fix it. For both my buyer and for me, I had mine already on my house. That other one, we definitely needed it done. I don't know how they didn't budget that ahead of time, but we did end up getting a roof done. Did delay our closing a little bit, but I got a new roof for my buyers and I'm not even mad about it. But ways it can go wrong is literally our pool filter. So I never wanted a house with a pool because of the cost of it and everything like that and just the headache of everything. And we needed a new pool filter because the pool was not loved at all when we got it. And so we're like, we need a new pool filter. They gave us one half the size that we actually needed. Like the actual care to attention wasn't there because again, this is an investor. They could care less if my pool filter was the right size at all. We ended up after we closed, had to fix all that. And then also they don't always have the best people who are handling their handyman work or any trades that need to be done, to the point where they had a huge issue with our HVAC and they could not figure it out. Got third parties in, couldn't figure it out. We had it figured out the first week we were moved in. And so we did get a credit for that. We had to fight for a credit for that. And I think that's where like it comes into making sure you're represented, because they'll just sweep it under the rug and or not answer emails or texts or calls. No joke. So the buyers that I got a roof for, they were like, it's going to be 8 weeks for a roof, trying to turn us off to it. And I was like, you're going to get a roof. I don't care. Like, okay, 8 weeks, thanks. But it was like, could be sooner. And I was like, I need an answer. Like, we can't just like, could be sooner. They need to tell where they're renting that they're leaving. And no communication at all from our people. And I was like, who do you guys usually use? We just want to know, should we tell the insurance, not going to do anything. And got their information, called them and said, hey, when is this property going to get done? They're like, oh, we didn't know there was a timeline for it. I was like, oh, no shit. And so we actually got it all figured out. And they were not happy that we contacted them. But I was like, you should have known. Why are you hiring someone who's 2.5 hours away when I have a roofer right here who could take care of you? Like, that makes no sense. And I told them, if you ever need any vendors, I have some great ones because yours are garbage. Also with Opendoor, typically you are paying a higher price, but not all the time. Not if you have the right person on your side. My house was listed, I think they had it for $640. I'm pretty sure it was $640 listed, and I think we closed at $620. So we did get stuff off, and also, of course, having our 4 points and all of our issues done, like we were super happy. And then for my buyers, they did pay asking because it was in a multiple offer situation at that specific time, but their appraisal still came in like $20,000 over, which is amazing. Like, we were pumped about that because I was like, if you ever need to do anything, you could always just pull a HELOC, pull a line of equity if you need to with where your home appraised at. And then you guys can do whatever repairs or anything needed. But thankfully, because they had me, they don't have any issues or repairs needed after. And that goes back to the limitation on negotiation, because they do have a bottom line at the end of the day. But what I did for my personal house, because I first gave them an offer at like 40 days on market. And then I was like, no problem, I'll be back at 100 days. And I came back at 90 days. And that's when we went under contract. Of course, my first offer was a very, very low offer. But I know how much they paid for it, and I know the fees that they put on sellers, so might as well shoot my shot, right? But overall, I think me and Whopper can say we absolutely love our home, and my new buyers love theirs as well. And it really worked out for our sellers, because sometimes it does work in certain situations, but making sure you're properly represented is probably the most important thing, because there are a lot of things that can be missed or fallen through, and there's things that you just have to work out. And of course, yes, I am going to say what everyone else says. That is homeownership for you. There are a lot of things that happen right after you buy. Not kidding. Often. Unfortunately, very often it happens. But it's so important to have someone who's constantly there in your corner fighting for you. Because I'm telling you, if you're just using Opendoor and all you did was just call them, you have no one representing you. And it's not like going with a builder where they're wanting to have the best that's there for you. They're just wanting the best for them at the end of the day. And if you're trying to communicate with them, good luck, seriously. But these are just the pros and cons that I personally have experienced and I've heard other people experience with purchasing and selling with Opendoor. So maybe it does work for you. Maybe we should have a conversation, or maybe we should see what's possible without doing that first and without the headache of it. Because as much as it is seamless and simple and quick, it may be more of a headache in the long run. That's all my advice for today. Demi Judd, Real Broker. Until next time, I'll see you.